Welcome to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology podcast. Thomas Miller along with Robert Glasscock. We're going to go down a little bit of a different path here. I had this little premonition of something that I thought about because there are so many kids now that have been born since 2011, 2012, when Neptune entered Pisces. And this has been a fascination for me. The whole Neptune and Pisces thing has been a fascination for me in general. But I thought what we might do here is, for a minute, pick Robert's brain for you parents. Mostly we're talking about you millennials now, or maybe you have kids who are millennials, so you are the grandparents of these children. But they've been born broadly since about 2011, 10, 11, 12, in through there, up through today, since Neptune has been transiting through Pisces. It will be moving out in 2026 for good into Aries, which is going to completely change the complexion. And we've already talked about that in one of our recent episodes. What I wanted to do is kind of give you parents a survival toolkit, if you will, for raising your children who were born under these aspects.
Whoa, tough question. Good question. The planets we're talking about here are the outer planets. They're generational planets because they move so slowly. So they're in these signs for a number of years. If we're talking about Neptune, now in Pisces since 2011 and 2012, it goes into Aries in 2026, so only a few years away here. And Neptune in Pisces is its home sign. And it only happened, and nobody will live through two trances. The last time Neptune was in Pisces, for example, was in the lead up to the Civil War. And generations born during the Neptune in Pisces generation, this is people born since 2011, 2012 through 2026. Neptune's in its home sign. They're born into a worldwide generation that is experiencing the slow, subtle transition, if you will, or to use Neptune, one of Neptune's keywords, dissolving every known authority, figure, and system around the world. And you can see, again, not talking about politics, but if you look at the world state today, we're seeing through the supposed authority of everything, from religions to politics and to parental authority and so on, educational schools, the principal, all authority figures around the world are slowly transitioning from what we have known historically, really, into something else. So we have this entire period of confusion and uncertainty and seeing through things, and the generation born with this configuration. But those things are meant to make everybody of that generation question their authorities, and they will question you as parents too. It's got a wonderful side to it, Neptune and Pisces, because these are the generations, especially in terms of what Pisces rules, the arts, all of the arts, the creative arts. Look at the complete change in, say, motion pictures in the last 20 years, how they're distributed, et cetera, et cetera. There's that aspect of Neptune and Pisces. There's also the spiritual and religious aspects of it. And there seems to be a conflict between what people call spirituality versus religion. So these are the children that will also do that. They may become very religious. That's one side of this, and go in that direction and lock into that. Or this generation will say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So it's that questioning too about what is real. And we see this all over the place in the spread of misinformation. So this generation is born to either succumb to the lies that they've been told, or if they see through them, to move beyond them into some new kind of authoritative structure in their lives. So they are full of both self-doubt and also creative solutions to move civilization forward, if we can. So they can be tremendously idealistic, unbelievably sensitive. This generation can intuitively, Neptune, Pisces, emotions, the water signs, they can intuitively see the lies that they've been told. So if you're a parent of one of these children, try your best to give them honest and sensitive answers. They're questioning everything. They may not appear to believe in anything unless they go the other way in Pisces, which is to become, say, fanatically a believer in some system or other. They can do that as well. But it's this questioning and this perception that the world is changing, and they're searching for answers. And this is what I think drives them toward this spirituality, this kind of, and there really is a genuine spiritual awakening going on around the world. They may be questioning the old religious or spiritual authorities, but they're searching for the truth, and they're finding it. It may not agree with what they've been told is the truth for generations, which is why they can seem to be so threatening to, say, a parent who is very rigid in their beliefs and their authority structures and so on. And here comes this kid that sees through them. And that can be unnerving to a parent too. So there's a great sensitivity in this generation to the potential. Pisces is a double sign, as we all know. Part of it is facing forward, and part of it is letting go of the past. So they're born to a generation that, and this is worldwide, where all of these big collective threats, if you will, are meant to motivate humanity to solve these problems. They're questioning everything, and they can see through their parents in a very unnerving way. They are also capable of incredible love. And it's more than, I'm not talking about love for a boy and a girl. I'm talking about love for God, if you will, or spirituality, or love for the planet, love for humanity, all of humanity, no matter what color, race, or creed. This generation is an embodiment of this higher search for how do we coexist shoulder to shoulder in a planet that's now reached 8 billion people. How do we coexist with people who are not of the same faith or belief or race or creed or color as we are? The millennials, in a general sense here, have far less problems with all these things, so that you see interracial, international marriages, you see mixed race children. These have become commonplace, whereas before, and you go back in history, those sorts of things were frowned on. So it's a hugely idealistic generation, but it's born into an atmosphere of global transition. Now, some people, depending on their horoscopes, will seek out even more authority figures so that it gives them a sense of security in this massively transitional era. Other people born under this will embrace the transition of Neptune and do it very idealistically. So it's a dual sign, Pisces. So you get this kind of duality in this generation, but it ultimately is hugely spiritual. Primarily, this is basically Pisces symbolism. It's not the same death and rebirth that Scorpio symbolizes. It's a much subtler Pisces, and half of this is unconscious. Pisces is not necessarily conscious. These are deep emotional water sign undercurrents. So the intuition of these people, and also their psychic ability, Thomas, parents of these children may find that some of them are unnervingly perceptive and unnervingly psychic. They may be interested in dream analysis and non-physical reality and all of these things. It's a mystical generation in some ways. Well, none of that may seem practical to a parent born with Neptune in another sign, for example, Neptune in Capricorn. So, well, the parents wouldn't have that, but you see the difference?
Yes. No, and I picked up on a really interesting contrast as you were describing that. Very well done, by the way. And I hope that that does help folks with some things to think about in there. But here's the contrast that I picked up on. The parents of these kids were born with Neptune in Capricorn, and Pluto happened to be in Scorpio during that time. That most of the parents of these kids we were just talking about, that's the so-called Millennial Generation. And what did the Millennial Generation do but come through and question everything about the generation before them? My generation, the boomers,
yes.
Right? In fact, my own son has a boomer boss, and he doesn't say this anymore. He loves his boss now, but back in the day, he was like, I just wish these boomers would move out of the way and let us come in and take over. That's the millennial attitude. It's like, you boomers, get out of the way. Robert, that was me and you. We're supposed to go to the closet, I guess. But look, this is the point. And the millennial, now the parents, now these kids who were born back then have grown up and they've had these babies with Neptune and Pisces. They challenged, but what you're saying is you ain't seen nothing yet, because the other addition to this is that Pluto's going to be moving into Aquarius. So the other dynamic here is that of challenging. So we're talking about challenging. Not only is everything you just described about Neptune challenging, but now these kids, also Pluto is moving into Aquarius for 20 years.
True. Something else that occurred to me that's important is these children that we're talking about, born with Neptune in Pisces, their parents, the Millennial Generation, were born with Neptune in Capricorn, and Capricorn and Pisces sextile each other. So potentially there is great harmony between the millennial parents and with Neptune in Capricorn and their children with Neptune in Pisces since 2011 and 12. So potentially these parents are equipped to learn a great deal from their offspring, which is kind of the reverse of what is expected. The parents are the authorities, and the children are there to learn how to live, and we're going to show them how to live. It's quite the reverse here, but it's harmony. It's between Pisces and Capricorn. So their children, if they pay attention to their children's leanings, to their talents, to their hobbies, to their natural leanings, and so on, the parents can learn a great deal from their children, and vice versa. There's potential here for great harmony between these generations, even though the younger, the generation with Neptune in Pisces, is a transitional generation. They are meant to lead the world, in a sense, through this period of uncertainty. So the children here are actually, in one sense, if this is not going too far, spiritual emissaries for the new world, which we are slowly moving toward. And whether that world looks beautiful or threatening depends on the actions, not of these children, but of their teaching their elders the truth, which is Pisces. We are all one, no matter what your color, what your geography, or anything else.
This is so interesting because what you're talking about is two generations. Okay, so look, let's take a step back. You and I, we're older. We're on the upper end of the spectrum. So we look at all of this and we go, wow, stuff is getting ready to change. We've talked about that a lot, and anybody who's following astrology knows all those points. Now you're talking about not one, the millennial generation, but two, these generation, this kid, Neptune and Pisces kids, two generations could combine to both be on this like questioning authority, because you got their parents are questioning authority. Now these kids are going to come in, and you're saying they are super equipped to work with their parents and almost lead them through this. I've said, you millennial parents, get your kids to 16 and then get the hell out of the way.
It's true though. And it's an interesting, I don't know that it's a dilemma, but the idea that the children will teach the parents, I think that's always been true. to some extent. It's a two-way street. The parents that are born with Neptune and Capricorn, for example, are in a position they can be, as a mother and as a father, they are the authority figures. They run the house, and provide the security and all of that. So they can teach their children their rules to live by. But at the same time, these children are not going to take all of that parental instruction, if you will, literally so much, because they see more. Intuitively, they see more. Intuitively, they're very sensitive to what authority figures are telling them the truth and which ones are not. Now, it can be very confusing for this generation because they see this sea change, if you will, happening around the world. And so they are, if a parent will encourage these children, find out what you love. It can change, like a hobby. You may be interested in something at 13 that you're bored with by 16. On the other hand, if you discover that a child has, let's say, scientific acumen or musical talent or artistic talent, those are the cues to praise in that child, to develop in that child, for example. And as the parent does that, it's the old thing. The parents can certainly teach the children, but these children have a lot to teach their parents if the parents will listen to them, if the world will listen to them. And this is a potentially real spiritual breakthrough in their lifetimes. And that's one of the things they're meant to do, is to show the rest of us how to transform, in a sense, the old authorities into a more encompassing, global, universal authority, which is Pisces.
In other words, you boomers, get out of the way. We boomers.
Or better than that, learn to dance with your children.
Yeah. This has given me, Robert, brilliant, what this, we didn't know exactly where this was going to go. But where it went is, I have a lot more comfort in knowing that these next generations are going to take pretty good care of the place, because they are going to question all this stuff that we know needs to change. I mean, there's no question. It needs to change. The transition can be a little painful, but things need to change. And it looks like that it has the potential of being in good hands. And that's why we wanted to help empower you parents to be able to have the tools from an astrological perspective. Robert, I think this is probably going to spawn some questions. If you parents have questions, leave them on our SpeakPipe messaging system there. It's on the funastrology.com website up at the top. And Robert, I just wanted to thank you for stepping outside of the typical box of what we do. You did a great job, and thank you. And I know these parents are grateful.
Well, thank you, and I hope so too. That's a pretty thumbnail sketch, but I think there's a lot of meaning and depth there.
Well, let me give you an idea for a reading, too, because if you, as a millennial parent, have your kids' charts, and hopefully if you're into astrology, you do have an accurate birth time, you could sit down with Robert with your chart and your kids' chart, and that would be a really powerful reading session, and you could talk about some of the specifics, how you as a parent are wired, because obviously we can't get into that here, how your child is wired, and that would be even more power, but that's only something that could happen in a one-on-one reading. The information on how to do that is in our show notes. There's a direct link. You just click that, and it'll set you up to where you can email Robert and set that up. He handles everything directly. Also, we have, so many great things going on there. Robert, did you know that we now have a swag shop?
A swag shop?
We've got clothes. No. Yeah, we've got in the funastrology.com website, we have clothes, threads, T-shirts, journals, coffee mugs, etc. Sarah Wakeman has put that together, and it's all over there now. There's a link to it, and you can go shopping for things that represent our podcast. And in fact, she's going to do some stuff on Old Soul, New Soul as well. That's coming right around the corner. And then we have our Discord channel, the YouTube channel, everything. So we've got it going on. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. Robert, I just can't, again, sing the praises of what you did for us here. And we'll see you next time on the Old Soul, New Soul